What is up, everybody? Welcome back to 9 to 5 Gamers, and today is Top 10 Tuesday. That is right. And so I'm excited. I love Top 10 Tuesdays, but man, the creative juices are really starting to run out on this thing, man. So please tell me in the comment section what kind of Top 10s you guys want to see, because I made the mistake of making Top 10 Tuesday, not realizing I have to make 52 Top 10s by the end of the year. And I feel like my juices are just running low when it comes to creating those things. So is there any particular ones you guys want to see? Let me know in the comment section ASAP. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed, guys. We want to get this channel up to 10K subscribers, but first we've got to hit that 7K mark. So go ahead and share these videos with people you may know. And without further ado, let's just get into these videos, because I don't want to take too much nonsense mumbo jumbo at the beginning. So my top 10 this week is going to be top 10 racing games. I went on Board Game Geek, and man, what an interesting thing, because sometimes I go, hey, what's a good mechanic? So typically the way that I do these top 10s is I either do top 10s as far as my top 100 games, and I'll do my top 10 overall. Then I've done by mechanic, top 10 worker placement, top 10 area control, top 10 racing like we are today. And then another one that I've tried is top 10 theming. I did the space one. I wasn't too sure how the reception was on that, but let me know in the comments if you think the theme one is fun, because we might do pirate theme or something like that, or dinosaurs, favorite dinosaur games. So yeah, let me know if any of those kinds of topics work out for you and what kind of top 10s you guys want to see. But today is racing, and when I went to Board Game Geek, it was so weird, because there were some games in there that I didn't understand, but I think I got what they were going at, but we're not going to have these in the list. There was a sense of racing in the sense of first person to 10 points, or first person to do this wins. And in a sense, that's kind of racing, because you're racing to be the first one to do a certain thing. But then I feel like there's a lot of games that qualify for that don't feel like they're racing. When I think of racing, I think of bunch of people are just trying to go around and finish laps on a track, or get from point A to point B the fastest, whoever can do that the fastest. And so there were a couple of games that I thought of, and so one of the ones that I'm just going to say right off the bat, this is my honorable mention, is Long Shot the Dice game. I own it. It is a game that is a racing game that a lot of people have recommended and said, you're going to love that game. I still haven't gotten it to the table. I need to play that game as soon as possible, but for right now, it has not been played, so it's an honorary mention. But it's here because I know that it's a really good game, and I can't wait to try it out. So let's get into this top 10. My number 10 on the list is a game called Bristol 1350. You guys have heard me talk about this on the channel. It's a very, very good game. And it's considered a racing game because you're going from point A to point B, and whoever gets their card across first wins the game. However, there are 3 carts and 3 players in each cart, and you're trying to get your cart over to the finish line, but before you get there, you have to try to make absolutely certain that everybody in your cart is healthy. See, because this is taking place during the plague, and so people are getting sick. Everybody has these 2 cards that are symptoms, and if the numbers, each card has a number on it, and if the numbers add up to be 6 or more, you've got the plague for the rest of the game, and then your goal is to try to derail or trick people into losing the game. And so it's kind of interesting. So it's these people have mingled a lot, so I don't want any of them in my cart. So I'm gonna make sure you guys have been mingling too much. I don't want you to be in my cart. But it's a really fun game. If you've never played it, you can kick people out of your cart and watch them fall into another cart in the back. But it is a really good time just rolling dice, trying to get your cart ahead. You can take the dice and re-roll them so that people will end up having to mingle with each other instead of moving forward. So it's a really, really good game. You guys should give it a try. My number 9 is Downforce. Downforce is a really cool racing game where it's racing in the sense where there are cars moving around the track and you influence those cars. But the cool, interesting thing is that the cards you play don't just move your car forward, they move all the cars forward. And so you are sort of figuring out when is the best time to play certain cards, because I know these cards are going to try to propel them forward. You're dealt a random hand of cards at the very beginning of the game, and depending how many high numbered cards you have depends on which cars you want to buy and purchase and race with, because you can get them to get across the finish line first. But the cool part about the game too is that you can actually bet on cars. So even if you're like not in the lead specifically, you could always bet on who you think is going to win, and hopefully you can try to like push people up and take the victory away from another person while still getting another person to get the win, but at the same time you bet on them, so you end up getting a lot of money. Downforce is really fun, and I think they have it like super cheap, like at Target and stuff like that. You can actually get the big box expansions and stuff like that, I think. So that is a really cool game called Downforce. My number 9. My number 8 is a really simple, easy game to play, but it's one of my favorite racing games, and it is Jamaica. Jamaica is so much fun, and so basically you've got the island of Jamaica. Everybody's a pirate ship, and you are going to roll dice, and those 2 dice are going to be the... I forgot what the 2 numbers represent or what they were for, but basically you roll 2 dice, and then you put 1 dice on one side and the other dice on the other, and it tells you whether you can play a sun card or a day card or a night card, and depending where you put the numbers depends how many spaces you go up, I believe. But there's one that goes on the left and one goes on the right side of the card, and so everybody has these cards that have 2 sides to them, and the left side is the day, the right side is the night. And so it's like if I put the 2 and the 6, then the 2 is the left side of the card, the 6 is the right side of the card, if that's the way I choose to put it. And then if you have a green arrow, it means you go forward. If you have a red arrow, it means you go backwards. So in that case, you would go backwards 2, but then you would go forward 6. So you really made like 4 progress. But it's really fun because if you land in the same space as another person, you get to fight them and do combat with the dice. And if you beat them, you get to take their stuff. Goal of the game is to get across the finish line first, but at the same time, have a bunch of treasure as well before you get to the end of the finish line, because the treasures add a lot of extra points to you. So the goal is to have the most points at the end, not necessarily that you have to cross the finish line first, because you could cross the finish line first and still end up losing, depending on how much treasure the other people have, and if they also happen to cross the finish line around the same time that you do. I love Jamaica, man. It's so much fun, and it's so easy to play. You just roll your dice, position them where you want them, and then after that, everybody looks at their cards, and they choose which card they want to play. You flip them up, and everybody moves their boats around. It's really, really cool. I love Jamaica. That's my number 8. My number 7 was a game I got to play at Dice Tower East, which was Thunder Road Vendetta. And this is a really cool racing game, but even more so, I'm like, before I even choose to teach this as a racing game, I would be even hesitant to do that, because I would rather teach it as a skirmish game where it's like, bro, your goal is to knock each other out. Because if you focus just on the racing aspect of it, the road is basically endless until one person is eliminated from the game, right? Like, so you'll just be racing for forever until somebody has all 3 of their cars knocked out, and then that's when the finish line will pop up, and then whoever passes the finish line wins. So the goal of the game is to really just eliminate each other and crashing your car into each other. You've got weapons and different things and abilities that you can roll for. Dude, it was a really good time. It took us a long time, but again, I think the reason why it took us so long to finish was because we were playing it more so like racing and trying to avoid each other. But once we realized, like, this game's taking too long, I'm just going to start smashing into people, that's where the game really started to take off. And so I wish we had played it that way. So if you're going to play that game, you're going to just be smacking each other and having a good time. Thunder Road Vendetta is super good. I really enjoyed it. I would love to play it again. That is why it's my number 7. My number 6 is a racing game that not a lot of people talk about anymore, but it's still really good. As a matter of fact, it was up there because it gave me the same feel as Quacks of Quedlinburg, because it's got this push your luck element. So they were the same in regards to that, because Quacks of Quedlinburg isn't really a racing game. But this one had that push your luck element where you're rolling dice, and then those dice you're using. It's a game called Cubitos, which is a really fun racing game where you have different dice that have different colors, but you buy the dice and put them into your pool of dice, and then you choose which dice you want to roll. And some of the colored dice have different abilities that let you do different things, and you're just racing around the map trying to get ahead of each other. It's super fun, man. I love Cubitos. I think it's a solid racing game. If you've never played it before, you've really got to try it. I love the dice mechanic and how dice that you use, they end up getting spent into a pool, and then whatever's left over, those are the ones you can use. So then you get a buying phase, and then all the cards the dice that you buy will go into your supply at the bottom, and then you've got to trickle those in, and then they rotate back around back into your pool of dice. So it's really cool, man, and you can upgrade these dice. It was really cool. I love it. And then each type of dice has like cards that have abilities on them, but then you can switch the card out and give those dice completely different abilities, which I thought was really cool. So definitely a game you should check out. I love Cubitos. My number 5 racing game of all time is Ready, Set, Bet. And let me tell you something, you really need to make sure you play with the right group with this one. I would say this game is a little bit group dependent, because if you don't have a group of people that are wild and crazy and just want to yell and scream and shout, this game loses a little bit of its luster because of that. But cool thing is you can have somebody who rolls the dice and basically is in charge of moving the horses forward, but everybody else is betting on these horses. And so these horses are racing across the finish line, and here you are betting on them, trying to win money off of those bets. And it's really cool. It's got this big betting board, and you've got this small little board where the horses are. And if you don't have somebody to call out the numbers and to roll the dice, because they do that real time, so it's like you're betting real time. Like they're rolling dice and going, number 6 goes up and number 7 takes the lead, and and they're just turn by turn by turn by turn. The horses are just moving, and you don't really get a break to really consider. You're just kind of watching and saying, oh man, that 6 keeps going up, I'm gonna put a bet on 6. Then all of a sudden the 4 just keeps getting called, and the 4 goes in the lead, and you're like, how in the world did the 4 take the lead? And I'm telling you, it's like I said, it's a little group dependent, but if you have the right group for it, oh my goodness, Ready, Set, Bet is one of the greatest racing games I've ever played. I love this game, and it's really, really fun, especially all of the betting and stuff like that, and just the excitement of the game, and it just feels like you're at a real horse race. I love Ready, Set, Bet. It's a great game, great racing game. You should definitely give it a shot. Number 4 is Camel Up, man. Camel Up is fantastic. You're racing camels, and you've got this big pyramid that has dice in it, and you click the little button, drops a dice out, and then whatever dice comes out, that colored camel, you move it up that many spaces, and there's a betting element to this game as well. And then there's like these white and black camels that will move forward, and sometimes the camels will land on top of each other, so they'll just stack up. And sometimes if you're stacked on top of a black or white camel, those camels will end up moving in reverse sometimes, and then it'll drag some of the camels back. And it's just watching the camels run around this map, and you're betting on them, and it's just really, really good time. And let me tell you something, this is one of the coolest things about this game. It's got a pop-up game board, right? Like the game board is just like a normal board game where you would just like one of those foldable ones that folds out, and then you put it out. But when you do that, there's a whole like oasis that like pops up in the middle of the board. It's so cool the way they made the board for this game. But I love Camel Up. Camel Up is so good, and I guarantee you'll have a great time. And it plays with a high player count, which is really good because not every game has high player counts. This one happens to have, I believe it plays to 8. Where's my Camel Up? I haven't seen it in a while. Yeah, I can't see. But anyways, that is my number 4, Camel Up. And my number 3, Quest for El Dorado. Quest for El Dorado is an amazing, it's an amazing racing game, but it's a deck builder racing game. Kind of similar to actually Summer Camp, and I think there was another game that was very similar to it, Clank. But Clank isn't really mostly a race, I would say. Clank is more of like a dungeon crawlery, and there is a little bit of a race to it, but it's more of like I'm going to go in, grab some artifacts, and go out. Then the race starts where it's like, now I got to get out of this place. So it's a little bit like that, but I feel like Quest for El Dorado just does it so perfectly. You've got this big map, and there's 3 different colored spaces. There's the sand spaces, the jungle spaces, and the water spaces. And you want to buy cards because the cards match up with those spaces. And so if you buy yellow cards, that'll let you move through a sand space. If you buy blue cards, those will let you move through the ocean or the river spaces, and if you buy green cards, they let you get through the jungle. But it's really cool the way you kind of play out your cards, and you determine, hey, you know what, I need coins to buy cards with, and so you build your deck by buying cards from a market. But those cards go back into your discard, and then when you shuffle up and you bring them back out, some of those cards are more powerful, where one of them is like when you start off with, you can only move one jungle space. Then you'll buy a card that has 3 swords on it, 3 machetes, and it's like that will let you go through 3 jungle spaces, or maybe a jungle space that has 2 or 3 machete symbols on it. You can pass through those a lot easier since you can't add them up. It's such a fun game. Not super thinky, but just like, you really got to buy and build your deck very well, and I love that. And it plays great with 4 players, 3 players. It's a super fun racing game, and guarantee you will love it if you play it. I love Quest for El Dorado. My number 2 and my number 1 were in a dead competition. Like, it was neck and neck, super tight. And when it came down to it, I had to think about which game am I playing the most? Which game gets to the table more often than the other? And so my number 2 is Heat Pedal to the Metal. Heat Pedal to the Metal could have easily been my first, because I think Heat Pedal to the Metal is a fantastic racing game. Heat Pedal to the Metal, I'm just gonna call it Heat because I keep saying pedal to the metal and I'm annoying myself. But Heat is just such a good game, man. You've got this engine, and I think it's got the coolest mechanic when it comes to that engine, because it kind of feels like deck building, but not really. And you've got heat inside your engine, and you spend those heats to boost your car and move them up. You've also got a deck full of cards that have different numbers on them, and those numbers are the amount of spaces you're going to move up. But then every corner has like a speed limit almost, and so it's like when you pass up that line, you have to make sure that you've only played cards that equal the amount that is printed on the corner, because if you go over that number, you have to pay the difference in heat. And if you don't have enough heat cards in your engine and you run out, you end up spinning out of control. You got to go behind the line, and it's really fun. You can draft off of each other. I think as a racing game, this has by far the best mechanics when it comes to racing. I think it's honestly, like I said, top tier when it comes to racing games. I think you will love this game. As a matter of fact, I would say this should be the number 1, because I think that more people would enjoy their experience with Heat. Not to mention that once you play the base game, there's a ton of other stuff. There's a tournament mode. There's actual like customizing of your car and different things like that. There's a weather module that adds weather mechanics to the game. There's so much inside of that box, and Days of Wonder, they've always done a great job in producing amazing games, and Heat is no different. Very hard to find, very hard to get a hold of. Days of Wonder games are usually like that, except for like Ticket to Ride. They print so many of those, it's hard to keep track of them. But this is definitely a game you want to check out, Heat Pedal to the Metal. And my number 1, and I'm totally biased about this, but I think some people who watch the channel will know, my number 1 racing game of all time is Dodo's Riding Dinosaurs. Dude, the way I found this game was so weird. We went to Dice Tower East, and I remember it was on Thursday of Dice Tower, and I played nothing but bad games that entire day. Like, every game I played, I did not enjoy. And I was like, man, I just need a win at the end of the day, man. I just need a game that I'm going to like, and I'm just going to have a good time. And everybody was kind of tired, and it was just weird. So we grabbed Dodo's Riding Dinosaurs. It was like, this game looks silly, and I think somebody said, you know what, I can learn it really quick. I think I've seen some people play it, and it doesn't look that complicated. Let me learn. They learned how to play the game, and I think it was like 6 of us or more, and we just started playing this game. And as a matter of fact, while I was learning how to play and while we were playing, I was learning how to play another game on the side. I was reading the instruction booklet. And as I'm reading the instruction booklet, I'm just hearing how the game is played. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And then they start playing it, and I'm like, all right, so what do I do? And then they're like, yeah, just grab your cards and do this. And I'm like, oh, okay, so I play this. I'm going to go this forward. Oh, I get to flick an egg. What? And then I flick the egg and hit the person. They have to go back. Then all of a sudden, people, I'm going to take the lead, and then somebody grabs a feather, and they chuck this feather at me. The feather hits my car. Or hits my dinosaur, and then all of a sudden, I'm like, crap, you hit my dinosaur. What does that mean? Now we have to switch places. I'm like, oh, my gosh. It was like playing Mario Kart if Mario Kart was a board game. And, dude, we had such a blast. We were so loud. Everybody at the convention was just looking at us play this game and was cracking up. Because people were probably thought we were on something, like, to be honest. But we were We had such a good time. I think from Dice Tower East, it was the only game I played twice that I was like, I want to play this again, and we did. There were other games that I wanted to run again where I was like, I loved Millefiori, and I was like, I would love to play that again. But I ended up just buying the game so I could play it later. I wanted to play Planet Unknown again, but I didn't end up playing it because I didn't want to waste time. But this one, I was more than happy to do it because it was just so easy, so fast, so fun. It's got dexterity elements where you're flicking things. You can roll logs and drop meteors on dinosaurs, and every dinosaur that gets hit takes 2 damage. Your life is your hand of cards, and so when you take damage, you have to get rid of cards from your hand. It's got this really fun mechanic where they have these blue cards. The blue cards are like your regular cards that make you move forward and make you go, and they have abilities on them. But then there's these red cards, and the cool thing that I like about the red cards is that they're really strong. Like, they will make you go forward a lot of spaces if you play them at the right time. But the problem is only one red card can be played. Otherwise, if more than one is played, all the red cards get nullified, and all you get is the speed and nothing else. Because it's not really the speed on the card that makes you go forward, it's the abilities. So it'll be like, go forward 2, and then roll this log, and if you hit somebody, go forward an extra like 3 or 4 spaces. So but yeah, the red cards cancel each other out, and then you have these green cards that add effects and things like that, where it's like, hey, when somebody uses a blue card, you can play this and you gain +3 movement. And so the dinosaurs have abilities that you can add to the game to spice it up. It's super, super fun, man. I love Dodo's Riding Dinosaurs. It is actually, objectively, this game is not anywhere close to my score, but this is just my opinion. Subjectively, I would say Dodo's Riding Dinosaurs is a 10 out of 10. Like, this is a golden lunchbox game. Like, that's a big deal. And so I don't have a lot of games that I give a 10 out of 10 to. Dodo's Riding Dinosaurs is one of those. People can look at me weird and just be like, how is that game a 10? That game is not that good. You're right, it isn't. I will objectively say it is not that great of a game. Like, realistically, it's somewhere between like a 7 and an 8. It is no higher than an 8. Like, it's probably not even an 8 on BGG. It's probably like in the 7 range. But I will say this, for me, that game is a 10 out of 10. I absolutely love Dodo's Riding Dinosaurs. It's one of my favorite games ever. And so, I don't know, man. As far as racing game goes, it's hard to beat that one. We got a lot of really cool games coming out. We've got the dungeon, what is it called? Dungeon Cart. I think it's called Dungeon Cart. It's a new boss monster themed racing game. They've played it on a couple of channels. It looks really cool, but otherwise I like their games, and they are definitely doing this new Dungeon Cart game that looks interesting as well, which might be a pretty good racing game. We'll see. I think one of the comments, they said this game gets these games right, like a lot of the things that other games don't do well. But for me, Dodo's Riding Dinosaur, take my money. Anyway, thank you guys for tuning in to this top 10 racing game. Top 10 racing games. I appreciate you watching the video, and I'll check you guys out later. Don't forget, like, comment, subscribe. In the comment section, don't forget to tell me what kind of top 10s do you want to see. Number 1, number 2, what are your favorite racing games? I know Flamme Rouge is a really good popular racing game. I know there's some other racing games that are out there that are really good. Long Shot the Dice game, of course. Let me know in the comment section what your favorite racing game is. And also, with all that said, don't forget to check out our memberships, man. Would love to have more members, because the more members we have, the more money we bring into the channel, and the more we can afford to do giveaways and just really fun stuff here at the channel. So please support the channel, man. I would love to get your support rather than leaning on the support of board game designers. I would like to promote board games for free for board game designers. If there are any board game designers watching this video, I promote your games for free. I do not charge to do videos to promote them. I would love to promote your games. I would love to preview them on my channel and just take a look at them and talk about what I like about them. And I want to do that for free. I don't the idea of being paid by Board Game Designs. That's why I'm trying to look for sponsors that are not board game related. So you might see some like coffee ads on here or something like that. So, but just looking for cool ways, or maybe some mobile apps or mobile games, things like that. Those are ways that I'm trying to figure out how to fund the channel. But the easiest way that we can fund this channel is by you guys supporting with your memberships. So become a member, man. A lot of cool perks. You get exclusive videos and as well as early access to my videos, and I will send posts throughout the week on when cool stuff happens. Actually, I put this one public, but like for example, I just got Dwellings of Eldritch Vale in, and I'm like super excited. Dude, this box is massive. This game is huge. But I just got Dwellings of Eldritch Vale in. As a matter of fact, the guy who taught me Dodo's Writing Dinosaurs is the one who taught me Dwellings of Eldritch Vale. Love you. You're the best, dude. And so with that said, like I do posts when stuff like this comes in. I'll do a post, or I'll do like live streams to unbox these games, and I'll do that for my members and stuff like that. So you guys could just be a part of my life. But anyways, this video is way too long. So sorry about that. I love you guys very much. Thank you guys for tuning in. See you guys later.